There were many such experts within the amateur circle. They mainly focused on one mech. They could be said to have understood the essence of the mech, so much so that they were considered to be more skillful than the professionals. The reason behind why they were not able to make a career out of it was because they did not have a broad selection of choices. This was a disadvantage as their mech would be easily targeted and countered, but then again, the pilot could enjoy playing only the mech that they loved. This was one of the reasons why CT was so addictive. There would always be a mech that suited the player. Yan Xiaoshu was ecstatic. Never did he expect to carry the battle using his own abilities. Although Wang Zheng had given Yan Xiaoshu some tips and tricks, it was mainly because this mech suited Yan Xiaoshu. To put it simply, no challenge was too difficult if the pilot enjoyed using the mech. Fatty loved using hit-and-run tactics. He had become accustomed to switching between the semi-beast and beast-type modes. With more practice, he would become a master at utilizing it. As for the lightning javelin's accuracy, it would be up to the pilot's instincts. Judging from the impact Fatty made, it seemed like he had a talent for sniping. Yuan Long had already sent the entire video to his master. Master, this was my misperception. The opponent's level was higher than ours. But Ella and I have totally different styles. How is it possible that we were totally subdued? Yuan Long's master, Black Decisive Fist, was a famous person in the Northern Star. He did not accept disciples easily. Black Decisive Fist watched both videos seriously. There are definitely discrepancies in virtual battles, but this person was able to wield this sort of control in CT, so his physical condition is not that different from yours and Ella's. He displayed great awareness. I heard of it a long time ago, but such a scene has not appeared for more than 100 years. Are you saying that the long-lost civilization of the ancient Earth is reviving? Yuan Long was alarmed. The Northern Star and Earth had a special connection. Although there had not been direct contact for many years, some of the older traditions of the Northern Star contained traces that originated from Earth. His method of tempering the body was one of them, but with Earth's decline, no one wanted to acknowledge it. Of course, these methods were also adjusted accordingly to the characteristics of their respective planets and bodies. But from just one glance, these methods' origins could be traced back to the highest realms of Earth. Only the people from Earth could have done this. I can't draw a solid conclusion from this. I'll have to get it accredited by the League. We can only make conclusions if this is the real video of that battle. Black Decisive Fist was very excited. If it really was true, then a lot of things would be set into motion. Human civilization had experienced two significant leaps. Although these events had faded into obscurity, they were not completely forgotten. Instead, they had been hidden away. The Northern Star was one of these sacred locations, and the legends surrounding it were true. A godlike person did appear on the Northern Star. That person originated from Earth. And he considered the Northern Star to be his second home. As for the earliest civilization, it became lost to time immemorial as its records were difficult to trace. The records of the second civilization could be found on all the major planets, but they were in the hands of very few. The separation that had happened that year, Black Decisive Fist's eyes were full of longing. These were events that took place during his childhood. His teacher passed them on to him by word of mouth as these matters could never exist in writing. Tracing its history to its roots, Earth might have been weak, but one individual had appeared amongst the humans. He went on and become the strongest individual recorded in legends. Those times had seen great transformation and changes. Things were changing and history might repeat itself. The outcome was still uncertain. Yuan Long did not ponder much about this matter. He was curious about this opponent, and he hoped that he would be able to meet him one day. Ella must be feeling miserable right now. That girl was just too proud. After the last battle, PPA and the others were totally crushed. They had lost their momentum and it had affected their state of mind. They might not be able to perform at even half of their previous ability anymore. But for Yuan Long, this sort of crushing feeling had been reined in. This rascal was even more formidable than he had thought. Hopefully, he would be more than just a mere gamer. A CT fanatic might have been able to perform those moves with enough practice. However, to do the same in reality would require completely different competencies. Solon was ecstatic. The Jungle Scamper mech variant had sold more than 5 million models. This mech model was unpopular when it was introduced to the CT stores and remained so after God knows how many years. No one bought it even during promotions, but right now it had become insanely popular. Most importantly, as president of the solar system, he had won unprecedented glory for the solar system region. Not only was he proficient in a civil war, but also in a foreign war. Skeleton was amazing when he was serious, he could totally trash the opposing side. Boss, the audience is waiting for Deer to fulfill his promise. Solon laughed. That is true, how could we have forgotten that? Give Comrade Old Deer a close-up special. The other regions were not interested in that matter, but the audience of the Earth region was totally absorbed by it. Old Deer had attempted to slip away, but he eventually got caught and brought back. Old Deer, don't even think about running away, Big Brother has bought 100 milk cartons just for you. Lewd Deer, hurry up and eat the milk cartons. The audience was extremely enthusiastic. Old Deer was helpless. Oh, why bother with just these few milk cartons? Looks like I'm actually getting more famous. Excellent. FK, to hell with all of you. I will destroy another 100. Brothers, advance forward. Let's smash Old Deer. He dared to underestimate us, let's show him. Immediately, the milk cartons began to pile up. Old Deer was stunned. What a fierce grudge. Why bother wasting so much money? It would be better spend it on actual milk instead. The more sarcastic Old Deer was, the larger the pile of milk cartons grew. A milk carton was finally brought up on stage. Old Deer's expression perked up, and with a big smile, he started eating it up by the mouthful. The audience very quickly grew suspicious. What sort of milk carton was that? Why did it sound so crispy? All finished. This small, crispy brand milk carton, nutritious and healthy, he said while flashing a peace sign. The audience then realized that they'd been had. The comments section exploded in anger. Shameless Old Deer, could you be any more shameless? Who knows Old Deer's address? I'll carry explosives there tonight. How sinister. This rascal can go no lower. Old Deer's personal forum also exploded in activity. But Old Deer felt pleased with himself. He did not care that this was being broadcasted live. Thank you, friends from all over the galaxy. You'll need to be more specific next time. And never underestimate the #1 commentator's IQ. Thank you for tuning in and we'll see you again next time. Also, don't bother trying to find my address, as I live at a hotel. Thank you. Bubbly Foam was stunned. He actually dared to twist the viewer's words. What audacity. Wouldn't he receive numerous complaints? Solon was stunned too. But the data revealed that besides the unhappiness, there wasn't much else of note. Only now did Solon realize that young Deer really had become the Deer God. His unique style of ridicule would have made others get beaten up, but only he alone could remain unscathed. Xiao Ya, immediately issue commentator Deer a 5-year contract, and remember to be respectful. Solon was a businessman, and a sensible one at that. Actually, teasing Old Deer had become a necessity in the show. It would feel empty and dull if he was not around. To be honest, it was impressive that he had endured it for so long. No one knew how Old Deer had managed it. Yan Xiaoshu was hopping mad. He had bought 5,000 milk cartons, but in the end. Boss, I've always thought that I had thick skin, but I am nothing compared to him. His level of audacity, does he not fear death? Yan Xiaoshu could not hold back his laughter after that rant. This is definitely someone who dares to play with his life. Wang Zheng smiled. This guy had piqued his interest. Wang Zheng could tell a lot from just looking at a person's eyes. No matter what had happened, Old Deer's eyes always displayed firm resolve. This showed that in his life, there were things that he firmly believed in. That was his harbor. No matter how fierce the storm outside raged, he was unaffected on the inside. Such a person would not have evil intentions. Actually, I would love to learn from him, Wang Zheng said, laughing. But that is a discussion for another day. Although Old Deer was not in the strongest league, he was still a diamond-ranked master after all. He would definitely stand no chance in a fight against Skeleton, but it was not a matter of the outcome but rather how many people would tune in to watch the match, at least on Earth. Yi Zissou had also finished watching the battle. She particularly loved watching this battle as Skeleton was able to fully utilize the full potential of the mech. The CT data did not produce much information for reference, but for a designer, this would provide a lot of inspiration when it came to designing a mech. On Earth, in the Asian region in Beijing, the temperature was 35.4 degrees Celsius, Category 3 winds with a cloudy sky. This was the perfect weather to go out and play. Zissou, the weather is really good today. It is not good to stay at home the entire day. Zissou lifted up her head from a countless pile of drawings. Dad, I just sorted out some clues. Why would I have time to play? Besides, I just came back from outside a few days ago. All right, my daughter is all grown up now, so she knows best. But Zissou, you're the future head of the group. As long as you have enough knowledge on mecha, that would be sufficient. What you are studying right now is just supplementary. This is not the direction our OMG business is taking. Yi Bingwen shook his head while looking at the table full of drawings. He had sent his daughter to the machine department not to research on mecha but rather to gain an in-depth understanding of them. But then again, Yi Zissou spent her time outside school to experience how the company was managed. The rest of her time was spent on inheriting the culture of the company. The future of the business lay with her. Not having a deep understanding of the mecha would create additional difficulties down the road. Although it was a difficult path, this was the right way to go. Yi Zissou laughed and said, just understanding mecha is not sufficient. As OMG grows larger and larger, the technical expertise that we have accumulated is still inferior to that of those large military enterprises. We still have many gaps to fill, so we must work hard in order to succeed. Of course, Yi Zissou had her own selfish motives behind it. She had hoped to do something for a certain person. Yi Bingwen was startled, but then he smiled. All right then, I did not choose the wrong person to succeed me. Dad is getting old now, so my views may be getting more conservative. You are right, if we are able to do it, then why don't we go for it? In that case, Dad, if you have no other matters, then why don't you go watch television, or perhaps play some golf? Okay, Daddy will go play some golf. I won't be back for dinner tonight. Oh, right, the Northern Star celebration feast will be held tomorrow afternoon at home. The company's directors will all be there, and you will be required to attend too. Have a good rest and sleep early tonight, Yi Bingwen instructed. I know. Yi Zissou smiled while following her dad to the door. After that, she delved her head back into the pile of countless drawings. On the second day, the weather maintained at levels similar to the previous day. The temperature even dipped a little. Let Daddy take a look at you. Yeah, you look really beautiful. What about the brooch that Daddy gave you last time? Put it on. Daddy, this is just a celebration event. This will do. Yi Zissou commented. Luck played a part in the Northern Star's success, and this allowed her to gain some prestige in the company. Although she was the heir, a company was not run by a single person. If she wanted to manage the company, she would have to slowly earn the trust of the board of directors one step at a time. Yi Bingwen felt helpless. This girl had grown up to become more assertive. One by one, the important guests arrived, the political elites followed by the business executives. Yi Bingwen received the guests in the garden together with Yi Zissou. Ho ho, Mr. Yi, it has been a while. A man in his 60s greeted Yi Bingwen. He was accompanied by a young man with a sickly figure. Yi Bingwen shook this man's hand with an affectionate grip. Haha, Mr. Fraser, it has been 10 years since we last met, and you still look so young. You flatter me. I've gotten old with age. I was watching a movie yesterday and I fell asleep halfway through it. Looks like I don't have as much energy as before. That film must have been too boring, Mr. Fraser. Allow me to introduce my daughter, Yi Zissou. Zissou, this is Uncle Fraser from the moon. Uncle Fraser, who single-handedly established the solar system's largest deep space transport group. How could I not have heard of you? You've been my idol ever since I was a child, Yi Zissou said, smiling. The Shin Cheng Group was a centennial group that covered all aspects of the moon. For nearly 30 years it was the largest transport giant in the solar system. If OMG wanted to fulfill its desire to dive into the galaxy market outside of the solar system, a sincere partnership with Shin Cheng Group was vital. Ha ha ha, you flatter me. Yi Bingwen, your daughter is a fine lady. Allow me to introduce to you my son, Doricius Block. Compared to your daughter, he still has much to learn. Dorotheus smiled politely. He wasn't as bad as his father had described him to be. It is my pleasure to meet both Uncle Yi and Miss Yi. You're being too modest. I know about him. Dorotheus is one of the brightest young talents on the moon. In fact, he is one of the 8 stars of the moon. Zissou, please help me play the part of a good host to Dorotheus. Young people have common talking points. Yi Bingwen laughed. Yi Zissou smiled politely. There were quite a lot of young males attending this event, yet her father wanted her to solely host Dorotheus. Really now? She nodded. She was curious about the 8 stars of the moon after all. Shall we sit over there? Yi Zissou pointed outside. It would be my pleasure. Dorotheus nodded. Yi Zissou watered the plants as she passed by them. She was about to speak when Dorotheus burst out laughing. Ho ho, from the looks of it, you were brought here for the same reasons too. Yi Zissou blinked with slight surprise. She immediately smiled. Not really. I guess I've always been mentally prepared for this. Ditto, OMG has garnered a lot of attention. I believe that in the future, there will be many areas we will be able to cooperate in. Both were heirs of their families, the future was in their hands. The two of them talked about the possibility of strategic cooperation, but it was merely their personal views on matters. It could be counted as indulging in each other's ideas. Adults had their way of thinking, but so did the youths. The Moon's team did well at the IG training camp this round. Yi Zissou blinked and changed the subject. Miss Zissou is also interested in IG? I was in Ares College's Mecha department. Mecha department? Dorotheus was slightly taken aback. I don't look the part, Yi Zissou laughed. Just a little surprised, Dorotheus laughed. The reputation of the 8 stars of the moon precedes you, Yi Zissou giggled. Earth's performance was the real shocker. 4 individuals obtained very good results, we were foiled. Dorotheus smiled. Both of them had a lot of common topics, both in business and in school. Does Miss Zissou already have someone that she likes? Dorotheus asked suddenly. Dorotheus initially gave no thought to this matter, they had only just met each other. He started to feel that Zissou was a pretty good lady, she wasn't bossy and she was a capable person. Ah, Yi Zissou stared blankly. Why do you ask? Ho ho. I might sound a little narcissistic if I put it this way, but when we spoke with each other, your eyes would sparkle as if you were thinking of someone special. This person would most likely be someone you fancy, Dorotheus explained. His eyes showed perception. Was I really that obvious? Dorotheus nodded and laughed. I was just curious which individual it was that you thought so highly of. Yi Zissou's eyes wandered into the distance. There is such a person that I have liked for many years. Yi Zissou smiled gently. Oh, then I wish you all the best. Dorotheus was not a nosy person, he merely wanted to understand his future business partner better. Thank you. How about you? Do you have a person that you like? There is, but I'm afraid she sees me as a brother. But I'm still young, so there is no need to rush matters like these. A figure appeared in Dorotheus's mind. His eyes also wandered off into the distance. Yi Zissou laughed. He was human after all, at least he was not annoying. In the distance, both of their fathers were giving a toast. From the looks of it, it seems like both of are getting along pretty well, Fraser smiled. Ho ho. Young people are so interesting, Yi Bingwen nodded. Both of them looked each other in the eye and shook hands. Here's to good cooperation. The planet of Atlantis was the seat of the Republic. It was one of the top 10 mysteries of the Milky Way galaxy, and it possessed both culture and secrecy. But mankind did not know that one of the conditions to get Atlantis to join the Milky Way alliance was that Atlantis got to maintain its own freedom and relative independence. Externally, it looked like an ordinary planet with its unique style of architecture. But the Atlantis civilization was a unique spiritual civilization. It was also a place where all of mankind's knowledge was integrated into its very essence. But mankind never believed that it was just another ordinary planet. Secret probing was done because they suspected that underneath it all, this was a terrifying battle fortress. The Republic of Atlantis had 9 major cities, each of them the size of Australia on Earth. The streamlined rune ships were running in a busy but orderly fashion. After joining the Milky Way alliance, Atlantis underwent a series of changes. What had once been a completely conservative republic gradually opened up, and alliances started being formed. This showed that Atlantis was willing to seek a greater level of cooperation with others rather than maintain a neutral position. There were countless exotic spacecrafts flying around both inside the planet and in its skies. Flourishing and efficient, these spacecrafts were flying different colored streamers. The different colors signified that they ran on different tracks. At the center of Atlantis was a large temple that served as the palace. To put it bluntly, the palace was actually only the outer part of the temple. The palace was the guardian of the temple. The palace temple was snow-white in color. It contained a main hall that was round in shape. At the center of the main hall was the altar of the gods. At this moment, there was a beautiful white figure kneeling on the altar and praying. Beneath the altar were 12 girls surrounding it. They were the priestesses of the temple. Each of them was a pure virgin with devout faith and excellent qualifications. Each of their bodies was vaguely emitting a mysterious, dense, blue aura. After an hour, the figure on the altar stood up and raised up her head. She had a breathtaking face. She gently stepped down the stairs. A pair of sparkling and translucent feet gently touched the ground with a faint rhythm. This was an extremely sacred event. The moment she got off the altar, the sacred aura dispersed and in its place was the aura of a noble. She was the master of the 9 cities, the queen of the 3 great stars, Her Majesty. The priestesses assisted her with the changing of her robes. Once the robes of a priestess were taken off and the robes of a queen were on, the last trace of holiness faded away and was replaced by an overwhelming aura of majesty. This sort of majestic aura made all who laid eyes on her submit to Her Majesty. "You may take your leave." With this command, the queen made her way to her palace. The female officials submitted the documents that needed processing. These documents were not electronically stored like what mankind used, but rather were primitive books that contained writings in gold. It was actually as convenient as human technology, but only the people of Atlantis could use it. "Your Majesty, His Highness Hao Lin requests an audience." The documents were processed quickly and efficiently. In the short span of half an hour, 1,000 scrolls of nearly 500,000 words were processed. The queen looked up and smiled. "Let him in," she said as she put down the golden scroll in her hand. "Yes, Your Majesty." Hao Lin entered respectfully. "Your Majesty," he bowed. His actions were really cute. "Rise. Come here and sit down." The queen adjusted slightly so Hao Lin could sit on her lap. "Was the human world fun? You have human ancestry, so it would not be particularly difficult for you to understand them, but do not be affected by them," the queen said while smiling. She touched the top of Hao Lin's head. "They possess riches and are ambitious and unbridled. But Your Majesty, what about them worries you?" Hao Lin asked puzzled. "Every civilization must have its flaws. The closer they get to perfection, the greater the danger of extinction." The queen smiled lightly. "We are now in the Milky Way galaxy, and our fate with mankind has been intertwined after so many years of peace. After all this time, the humans must be finding it more difficult to suppress their ambitions. We must take the appropriate precautions." Hao Lin nodded. He knew that Her Majesty would never be wrong. This was God's guidance. Atlantis had been under the danger of total destruction several times before, but it had survived under God's guidance. The universe did not care about the existence of a civilization, nor its extinction, because a new civilization would replace it. There was an irresistible force that governed this universe, and the greater the force, the more it was respected. After thinking for a while, Hao Lin asked, "Your Majesty, there is one matter that I am concerned about. There was a human, and from his body I felt vibrations. These vibrations felt similar to God." "Oh, tell me more about it." The queen's eyes moved slightly. "It was from Ya Shuman's report. We've found the remnants of God in one of the humans on Earth. He has no doubt come into contact with God's energy." "Ho ho, there is no need to be alarmed. There is the possibility of this happening, but at the same time, it might have only been a feeling of nostalgia. God had no doubt left us already. All we need to do is wait and stay vigilant." The queen touched Hao Lin gently and said, "You have a great responsibility. You will have full responsibility in the matter with Aslan." "Yes, Your Majesty." Although he was only 10 years old, Hao Lin's knowledge and understanding were far beyond that of others of his age. But he did not understand one thing. He had sensed a trace of apprehension in the queen. What could possibly threaten the great Atlantis civilization? Wang Zheng's vacation was filled with activities. Halfway through his vacation, he received Zhou Emu's and Luo Mu's greetings. Neither of them could be too relaxed, as they had just passed the first phase of IG. Wang Zheng, Meng Tian, Zhang Shan, and Zhang Runan returned to school early. They spent the remaining time eating snacks. Their spirits were good after being able to relax and rest for a while, especially so for Zhang Shan. Very well, it seems like none of you got carried away, Zhou Mu said. He felt pleased with the 4 students. The states of their bodies indicated that they had maintained a certain amount of training, otherwise, they would not have reacted so well. Instructor, in the future, the banner of Ares College shall be mine to carry, Zhang Shan said confidently while thumping his chest. Not only had he increased his amount of physical training, he had also practiced martial arts. His confidence had risen to a new level. But simple brute force was not enough, there were still many techniques to learn. To be invincible, absolute strength and speed were required, but who possessed both? On top of that, no matter how strong a person was, he would need sufficient skills when faced with a group. Why are all of you looking at me like that? Don't you believe me? I shall change your opinions of me in the second stage, you will all end up admiring me? Zhang Shan said. Both Meng Tian and Zhang Runan could not help but turn their faces in disgust. Zhang Shan was speechless at their change in expressions. Did neither of them believe him? Zhou Mu could not help but ridicule him too. Mountain Maiden is not a nickname that can be easily discarded. I was just talking to a few old friends of mine, your nickname has spread like wildfire. Zhang Shan was dumbfounded. What the FK was this nonsense? Back to the matter at hand. You've all passed the first stage and then had the enjoyment of relaxation as well as bathing in the glory. It is time to get serious again, Zhou Mu said. IG is a mech warrior selection after all, and having completed the first stage only means that you have the potential to become a proficient mech warrior. You are still not at the end yet. The second stage will undoubtedly test the ability of your mech piloting skills. This will certainly be your favorite part. We can't wait for that, instructor, Zhang Shan roared. Piloting a gorgeous mech while crushing the world in majestic fashion and at the same time being surrounded by babes. Woohoo, that was life. With just these simple words, Wang Zheng felt a sort of boiling feeling welling up within him. Mecha were indeed extraordinary things. They had a certain allure to them. Once a person piloted one, his human abilities would be greatly empowered. It felt as though one's physical restrictions had been lifted. It was an intoxicating feeling of utter strength. A lot of mech warriors were addicted to this feeling. Who amongst you has piloted a military mech before? Luo Mu asked. The 4 of them looked at each other, but only Meng Tian nodded. I have. I've piloted the Earth Federation Army's regular mech for practice several times. What did you think of it? Luo Mu laughed. Difficult. Luo Mu laughed again. That is true. It is not the same as a practice mech, neither is it similar to the virtual version in a game. This is the real deal, it causes strain on the human body. The stronger and more flashy your attempted maneuvers, the greater the price the body will have to pay. A mech does not have limits, but the human body does. That is why I want all of you to understand the mech, understand your own limits, and then overcome them. Ho ho, let me summarize. We are going to lecture you on how to operate the mech. Instructor, of course we know that the virtual version does not fully represent the real thing, but will we really be allowed to pilot the real thing? Zhang Shan asked. You're in luck, kids. Then the curtain behind them slowly opened to reveal 4 brand new mecha. These are your training mecha, they are sponsored by OMG the Demon Wolf Type 5, the Beast Type 3, the Bada Type 5, and the Hunter Type 3. These are all brand new, do not waste such a good opportunity. Upon seeing the 4 mecha, Zhang Shan let out a weird howl and rushed forward to hug the Bada Type 5. He had always wanted to be an almighty mech pilot, and the Bada Type 5 would no doubt allow him to display his full potential. Zhang Shan suddenly felt himself being lifted off the ground. Zhang Runan threw Zhang Shan aside. This belongs to me. Are you for real, manly sister? Couldn't you be more democratic? Don't you think that I'm more suitable for it? Zhang Runan looked at Zhang Shan. That is yours. The Beast Type 3? To Zhang Shang. A heroic mech pilot did not use a beast-type mech. Not only should their ideal mech be strong, it should also look cool. Don't fight over this. Which one you are suitable with will only be decided after thorough testing. No matter your final preference, you're all going to have to get used to these 4 mecha. Only when you have a thorough understanding of a variety of mecha will you be able to counter them effectively. Joe Mew said. This time, you must totally annihilate the opponent. Old mecha were difficult to operate. To think that OMG would be willing to sponsor 4 brand new mecha was honestly unexpected. Although they were common models, this had gone beyond the college's expectations. Operating a real training mech was different from operating a virtual one. It felt really good. Also, it was brand new. Everyone had used a training mech. Wang Jung had also used it many times, but the feeling of piloting a brand new mech was completely different. The moment the pilot entered the cockpit, G-materials warped around the body and the devices interfaced directly with the pilot. The pilot and the mech had become one. It was like a body wearing clothes, but these gave one unbridled strength. This is your mech, it is akin to your life on the battlefield. Wang Jung and Zhang Shan both had their impulsive moments. Men were like that. Meng Tian was not that excited. She was experienced with mecha, and had even piloted high-end models. She only wished to improve her own combat ability through the training. Or else she would not make it past the second phase of IG. Luomu could not help but smile when he looked at the 4 excited students. The conditions this time are ideal, but take it easy, we don't want to end up damaging them. Let them train and familiarize themselves with the mecha first. They can duel each other later as long as the shield's energy levels are able to hold up. Around 1/10 should do, this way the mecha won't suffer from too much strain. According to Ji Yutei's intention, he had intended to assemble some old mecha or let them undergo training with the military. But Zhou Mu felt that it would be better to let them get used to the mecha first. It was fortunate that OMG was willing to give such a large donation. Of course, they knew that OMG intended to enter the military supply market, and this was their way of creating opportunities. Ji Yutei was still well connected in the military circle. In fact, not only Earth, but Mars and Karagal had begun their training as well. Some had even started earlier. The others were no fools. The second phase was definitely the real battle between mecha. Judging from the first phase, the probability of engaging in combat was very high. It would never be wrong to be prudent and prepare for that scenario. But the second phase required capital. It was not possible without it. It was different from practicing by oneself. Ares College had been on the downtrend these years, so the budgets had gotten smaller. To put it simply, there were only a few names left. Although it had achieved good results in the first phase, it was still too early to hope for a change in fortune. Just like everywhere else, the college would have prepared a complete collection of the mecha library. This was the basic facility of a military college. But this had always been a luxury. On the moon, at the Moonlight College's celestial pavilion, the 8 stars of the moon had gathered and were laughing. Masashi, I've received a message from the boss. It sounds a little bad. Where are we heading? Pai Xiaoxiu said. It was not their first time doing this sort of training. With regards to the mecha, as the most extravagant celestial body in the solar system, this training was nothing new. It should be mecha this time around. As to where we are headed equals, I am not a mind reader. Who knows what the boss is thinking? We might even be going to CT. You're kidding. What use is that? Even a god, there is nothing in the real world, Dong Xiao injected. Milo's device rang while he was chatting. It was Achilles. The spaceship has been arranged, Argus Space Station. In short, Achilles only needed to tell him the result. Everyone was stunned. Argus Space Station, how the hell would they get there? Although it was subordinate to the Solar System Federation, that place was chaotic. It was said that the locals even associated themselves with pirates, but no proof had been found thus far. Normal people would never go there. This was a mismatch with the high social standing of the moon. But Achilles was not giving them a choice, it was an instruction. 28 hours later, Milo and the others stepped into Argus Space Station. Achilles was dressed as a mercenary. Beside him stood a bald-headed and brawny man who was shirtless. He wore a one-piece armor that made him look as though he was capable of holding a fight with a mech in person. He stood there motionlessly, merely watching the rest. Everyone is here, let's move out then, Achilles said with a smile. Being an interstellar mercenary was not a new occupation. Interstellar voyages were highly dangerous, and the Federal Army could not be everywhere at once. Keeping a mercenary force would also be expensive, thus the professional mercenary occupation was born, and they were formerly thought of as armed escorts. The technical skills required of a mercenary were high, so the common soldier would not be an excellent mercenary. Because of this, the mercenaries were able to attain high positions within the military if they desired. But this was not what they wanted. They hated being tied down. A life of adventure and fighting was what they desired. In fact, the Federal Army were not the ones that the pirates hated, but rather it was the mercenaries. Upon departing from the space station, everyone looked at their surroundings with great interest. It was cleaner than expected. The air was fresh, lush plants were everywhere, and even the roadsides had flower beds that contained different flowers and grasses. It was not the run-down place that they had imagined. But upon further inspection, they noticed that most of the people here were businessmen. These businessmen possessed tough exteriors with solemn faces plastered upon them. Behind them followed fierce bodyguards. This proved that this was still Yagurus after all, and their own youthful faces were the odd ones out. The next moment, 2 maglev vehicles appeared in front of everyone. These were their means of transport. Holy crap, this looks sturdy. Does it come with its own energy shield system? Ottos asked. Although he had been disqualified, he had come along with the others as a sparring partner. That is correct. Who knows if a person is aiming at your head right now with a laser weapon, Baldy stated. Their destination was a mercenary barracks that was heavily guarded. It even looked like a prison. Masasi and the others felt puzzled. When had the boss changed his style? Why did he end up fraternizing with such people? They changed into the mercenary combat suits and went directly to the training grounds. Rattle rattle, a rack of mecha came rising out of the ground. They were delivered directly from the mecha base via elevators. 20 mecha in total, which consisted of all the 5 types. Support type, mobile scout type, heavily armored defensive type, offensive sniper type, and balanced type. Pick whichever you like and familiarize yourself with it, Achilles smiled. A group of pilots who looked like mercenaries stepped out from the cockpits to make space for them. They looked at Masasi and the others with curious eyes as if they were animals in the zoo. Doricius, I have the feeling that these people are interested in males, Dong Xiao joked. Damn, Pai Xiaoxiu, you got to be careful then. You look just like their type. Scram. Pai Xiaoxiu replied with one word. This place seemed extremely shady. Who knew what weird activities the locals were interested in? It gave off a shady feeling. If it were not for Achilles' request, they would never have come to this sort of place. They were not lacking in mecha either. Milo picked the offensive type, Masasi picked the balanced type, Pai Xiaoxiu casually picked the support type. In his words, the support mecha would usually stand in the backlines where it was safe and secure. None of the 20 mecha consisted of what they were familiar with, so they just randomly picked one. It didn't mean much to them. They had trained with hundreds of mecha before. In fact, the mecha they had trained with were not restricted to those of the solar system, they also used those of other galaxies. If Zhang Shan could know what the 8 stars were thinking, he would definitely have fainted from jealousy. A person would be frustrated if he constantly compared himself with others. On the training ground, Masasi and the others undertook maneuvers to familiarize themselves. Knowing that the others were mercenaries, they wanted to show off a little of their skills too. They did not think highly of the mercenaries. Only those who did not want to join the army or were rejected by the army would join the mercenaries. Although the exterior of the training ground did not look luxurious, its facilities were comprehensive. Milo piloted the mech to a footwork training field and started training her footwork. The training field remotely controlled the power system of the mech. If the footwork was not up to standard, the mech would be forced to break and the training session would be terminated. An indication light appeared on the ground of the site, and the moment the Milo stood on top of it, a new indication light quickly appeared 10 meters away with a hum. The mech had 2 seconds to move into the new position. With a bang, the mech dashed forward and stepped on the new indication light. More indicator lights appeared in the distance. The mech moved rapidly to each one of them. Initially, the distance between the indicator lights were within a reasonable range, but gradually the distance between them grew larger and the time limit grew shorter. Rumble rumble rumble, Milo had fun. Song of the Storm required one to have good footwork. It was a dazzling move in CT, but it was also a useful skill in reality. Although the skills used in CT may not be directly transferable to reality, this move was a true trump card she possessed. Boom! The difficulty was increased and various laser obstacles appeared to obstruct Milo. If Milo touched any of the obstacles along the way, the system would force the mech to stop. Milo merely smiled, and with twisting, evasive maneuvers, dashed past all of the obstacles. Such speed gave a person the feeling that the mech was a ghostly spirit, able to pass directly through all sort of obstacles. Obviously, this simulation presented no challenge to Milo. Dong Xiao laughed and rushed towards the strength training ground. The objective of this training was simple: to collide with the laser road obstacle in front of the mech and use any means to punch through the enemy's formation. Additional requirements were to disrupt the enemy formation and prevent the opponents from destroying his own damage-type mechs. The heavy armor-type mech was suited for this role. Dong Xiao continuously punched the obstacles. Every impact required him to have perfect form. Speed was of the essence, and the mech had to recover quickly to initiate another strike. Under normal circumstances, achieving 3 strikes per minute was considered a pass in the collision training. Achieving 5 strikes per minute was considered excellent. However, Dong Xiao never thought of settling for anything less than perfect. He struck out again and again, never stopping, rumble rumble rumble. 10 obstacles were broken in a minute. The mech also did not suffer much damage. The heavy shield expenditure used was not more than 30%. Although he was only hitting obstacles, he had done it elegantly. It was not like others, who were slumped over after the training. The 8 stars had all performed well, but this was due to them being familiar with the chosen mech. They had chosen the mecha and the training fields that suited their playstyle. Could this be called training? There was no need for such a big fuss. These mecha were old ones anyway. The mercenaries at the sidelines watched with interest. They would occasionally whisper to each other. "What do you think?" Achilles smiled and asked the bald team leader. The bald team leader smiled and replied, "They have good foundational skills and abilities. They are definitely geniuses." Achilles smiled and looked at the bald team leader. "I didn't come here just to hear praises from the Wolf King." The Wolf King Yazo. He was a famous person in the mercenary circles of the solar system. The Wolf Spirit mercenary corps that he led could easily be ranked amongst the top 10. He was a true expert. "A pack of trash," Yazo stated and stared blankly at Achilles. Achilles smiled as if he had expected that. "Ho ho. This was my intention for bringing them here." He pointed at the mercenaries who were watching from the sidelines. Yazo looked at Achilles with one eye and stated, "I owe your family a favor, but that does not mean I am interested in childish games. Of course, if any losses are incurred in actual sparring, I will pay you double the compensation. I know that you have been wanting to upgrade your mecha." Achilles had immediately struck the Wolf King's weakness. Yazo looked at Achilles. He knew that this young man was a capable person. "Are you sure? When have I ever said something and not backed it up?" The young man in front of him had a mild smile, but his eyes made him seem like a trustworthy person. For Yazo, this was indeed a good deal. Upon hearing that there would be sparring, Masashi and the others were excited. They had gotten bored of training alone. Where was the fun in that? "Who shall go first?" Yazo asked the group of youths. Dong Xiao stood out with a bang. "I shall go first. I heard that you guys are mercenaries. I will go easy on you so as not to ruin your reputation." Both Yazo and the mercenaries laughed, but their laughter contained a hint of malice. Black skin. "How could I bully such cute kids like them?" A black-skinned man with thick lips said. His smile revealed a mouthful of yellow teeth. He then entered the cockpit of a similar defense-type mech. Within 5 minutes, Dong Xiao's mech was on the ground. All of its limbs had been shattered and it had lost its ability to fight. Had this been an actual enemy, Dong Xiao would have already lost his life. "Little girl, you put up quite a fight." Black Skin chuckled as he hopped out of the mech. Dong Xiao could be seen trembling in his cockpit. Who the FK were these guys? He did not understand how he had gotten flipped over, nor why he was not able to get back on his feet. "Let me try," Milo said. Her eyes gave off a cold stare. These people did not look like much, but their accumulated combat experience should be respected and feared. Milo was flexible, but she was unable to land a series of blows. She was unable to unleash a flawless barrage of attacks like she was known to do. The opponent was not a target dummy nor used as a prop. They had combat experience, they knew how a person was going to attack from the way the limbs moved. Once you had made your move, they would be able to counter it the second time. Milo lasted a little longer, but in the end was beaten down all the same. In the blink of an eye, both of their mecha were smoldering wrecks. Milo's face was totally pale when she got pulled out of the cockpit. To have the mech's shields totally destroyed and all of its limbs shattered, that sort of feeling was utterly humiliating. Dong Xiao would be okay as he was a man, but the psychological impact must have been even greater for Milo. All of the others were silent, they now understood what the mercenaries was laughing at. Yazo roared with laughter. Thank you for your business, will it be cash or credit? Achilles laughed. Your guys were pretty good, I'll pay you triple, 50 million will be in your bank account within half an hour. You don't have to do anything else within this time. We, the Wolf Spirit Mercenary Corps, are the most professional, our customers are like gods to us. Yazo laughed and took stock of the group of students. He was surprised at the deep pockets of Achilles, but there was no need for it. Because Achilles' family was well known, there was not one person who could offend that family and still survive in this solar system. Achilles walked right up to Masashi and the others and began to lecture them. We don't have much time to train. If you guys can't even beat these mercenaries, then don't even bother thinking about going to IG. Achilles stated bluntly. His goal was not the solar system, only the vast expanse of the galaxy was the limit. In fact, all of the major military academies had already begun their preparations, but a lot of them had already lost right from the beginning. Meanwhile, Zhang Shan was doing somersaults with the demon wolf right this moment. Holy FK, who the hell was so perverted as to invent an animal mech? Ares College only had 4 mecha, which was nothing compared to the other colleges, yet this did not prevent Wang Zheng from practicing. Their training method was different from Achilles. Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan did not consider their mecha to be tools, they viewed them as extensions of their own bodies, and they were not as serious as Achilles during training. Wang Zheng, how were you able to use the demon wolf so effectively? Do you have any secrets? Zhang Shan asked in a depressed tone. He wanted to use the Bada as his main mech, but what Zhou Mu said was true. Whether he used it against the opponent or vice versa, he had to understand the mech in order to master it. Neither Meng Tian nor Zhang Runan could operate the beast-type mech smoothly either. Humans are a kind of animal too. We crawled on all fours when we were young and slowly stood upright and walked on 2 legs. We do not have to be confined to imitating animals. We need to be flexible in our thinking in order to fully play to the strengths of the limbs, don't you think? Wang Zheng said. Having an actual mech to practice with was different, and Wang Zheng trained daily to familiarize himself with the mech. The actual operation of the mech would produce many different kinds of reactions. There was nothing else that could replace this. Zhou Mu chuckled upon seeing the 4 youths debating passionately. This Wang Zheng is a natural-born warrior, but their current level is still not enough. We won't progress past the second phase like this. Zhou Mu said. Having come from a military background, he knew the degree of difficulty. At the moment, they were getting more and more familiar with the mecha. Wang Zheng was progressing at a faster pace now, and he performed well during sparring too. Wang Zheng was a fantastic opponent, and he would help to improve Meng Tian and the others, but sadly, there was no one that could help him improve. I know this too. What does Ji Yutei think about it? Ji Yutei said that this was something to be brought up to General Meng Ao. A solution will then be reached. Ares College performed well this time, so they should be supportive. I hope so. Li Er was the Earth region's original hope, but who knew that Ares College would prove to also be a contender during this IG? Zhou Mu had hoped that these students would go on to achieve great things and not be limited by the conditions. Wang Zheng shared a few of the experiences he had learned from piloting the mech. But these experiences were learned while actually performing the action. It was not something that Zhang Shan and the others would understand just by listening to Wang Zheng explain. Practicing on the training ground was not enough, as there were not enough training spaces and the site was too small. Everyone knew this. IG would definitely not give them such a relaxed environment such as a training field. The first phase was Demon Island, so who knew what area was waiting for them in the second phase? Wang Jung did not give much thought to it, as the conditions were something he could not change. What he could do was continue familiarizing himself with the mech. There is something that I've always been curious about, Wang Jung said. Meng Tian and the others laughed. There is actually something that you're curious about? Of course, I was wondering if Ability X has a significant impact on the mecha. This was a sore point for both Wang Jung and Zhang Shan. Both Meng Tian and Zhang Runan were proficient Ability X users. Zhang Runan shook her head. I have no answer for this. Ability X is actually divided into many different areas. It is actually very complicated when you delve into the specifics. But there is no doubt that when using the mecha as an extension of the body, the ability's usefulness comes into play. There are actually some special military mecha that enhance the ability of the human body. Linking the body together with the G material then allows the pilot to seamlessly interface with the mech. Meng Tian said. Her usage of Ability X with her mech was quite amazing. Some abilities are borderline useless, like the ability to breathe underwater, which can only be used under special circumstances. Others, like perceptive abilities, are relatively useful during battles. My ice ability is useful as I am able to penetrate the energy shield to directly attack the mech and its pilot. The group was stunned. What a formidable ability. Energy shields were totally useless against this Ability X. No wonder the military attached such importance to Ability X. For Zhang Runan, the moment she was enraged, the mech's capabilities also surged. Zhang Shan felt dejected. Despite training the entire day as well as putting in double the effort of everyone else, he might not even be a match for them. Wang Jung had been doing his own research on this topic, but something always seemed to be missing, and he could not quite put a finger on it. In fact, not all the top pilots were Ability X users. Having Ability X made things easier, but it was not absolutely needed to reach the top. Take for an example one of the Aslan Empire's 3 greatest pilots, died. He was not an Ability X user, but he was considered to be one of the strongest. Zhang Shan thought about it. Imagine the glory a non-Ability X user must feel when he beats an Ability X user. Ability X was only one part of achieving victory, it was not a critical requirement. There were too many conditions that came into play when it came to achieving victory. Actually, Wang Jung wanted to know what it felt like when Meng Tian or Zhang Runan used their Ability X, but this sort of matter was a highly private one. Even if they were friends, some things were best kept secret. But student Wang was very calm. His primordial regression technique had undergone some positive changes recently, perhaps just a little bit more and he would advance it to the next level. Ji Yute had spoken to Meng Ao, but the results were not ideal. Ji Yute wanted actual combat operations, but the military would not allow the students to undertake them. They could not be sent for those dangerous combat operations, neither could the students be allowed to tag along, as they might become a liability for the troops. The easy operations gave no training value either. Ji Yute had intended to request Meng Ao to send some military experts to help with training, but Meng Ao's answer was negative as well. IG was training provided by the military. Why would they allow for a training within a training? What Meng Ao meant was that the second phase of IG would provide students with the time to adapt. As to how it would be done was entirely up to the college. It was not that Meng Ao was unwilling to help, but rather if he did help, how would he be able to explain it to the other colleges? If everyone requested help, what should the military do? It would also void the purpose of IG. Some disadvantages were caused by the person's past choices, and they had to rely on their abilities to overcome them. The world was never fair. Ji Yute had no choice. He saw potential in Wang Jung and the others, but reality was harsh. He initially thought that Meng Ao would provide preferential treatment to Meng Tian as she was his daughter, but he did the exact opposite. If word had gotten out that Meng Ao helped Meng Tian, then Aries College, as well as Meng Tian, would be in trouble. Besides, the Kronos family would not agree to help. Help would have required the Kronos family's sponsorship. No matter what, money was essential. At this time, Lier also started mech training. It was about the same as on the moon. Fatty's mouth turned into a large, oh, and he drooled, holy crap, this was too extravagant. Maybe the word extravagant wasn't enough to describe the scene. This was luxurious. Being rich was nothing compared to this. Fatty always knew that Lee and the Kronos family were wealthy, but to what extent? So much that they had their own private island? Yeah, they definitely had that, but that was not the scariest bit. This was the Kronos family's base in Africa, the Weapons Research and Development Department. At the same time, this place held Lee personal mecha library. Rows upon rows of mecha stood as far as the eye could see. There were enough to outfit a contingent, but these were all for Lee personal use. This solar system's mecha are on this side, on that side are the mecha that the more distinct empires use, Lee said. Boss. How many mecha are there? More than 1,000 I guess. Some of them have only been used a few times. This is the 5th warehouse. Luo Fei was speechless. 1,000 mecha, holy crap, it must have cost a fortune for all of them. Feel free to use any of the mecha here. The second phase will no doubt be a mecha battle. You can familiarize yourself with the mecha first, I'll arrange a sparring partner for you over the next couple of days. Lee said. The sparring partner that Lee would provide was not going to be easy pickings. The Kronos family had never been that cheap. They liked to hire aces from all of the corners of the galaxy. But, if I damage something, will I have to pay for it? Fatty always never got the main point. Lee laughed, as long as you don't blow up this entire place. Ever since that transformation, Luo Fei had caught Lee attention. Sometimes, Lee was even jealous of Fatty's ability. Luo Fei let out a weird cry and rushed towards one of the Aslan Empire's mech. It couldn't be helped, it was famous. Lee paid no attention to his actions. Luo Fei was allowed to do whatever he wanted. He attached more importance to talents than to material objects. Master, the guests have been received, Droop said. Okay, I will be there shortly. Look for a few other good ones for Fatty to use. Luo Fei had talent, but his strength was still not up to par. There was still some way to go before he was strong enough. His biggest shortcoming was that he was lazy, thus he had to be ruthless in order to compensate for that. Droop shivered in his heart. Luo Fei was young, but he had to go through all this at his age. It was a bit brutal, but it was not rare. But then again, Lee was able to arrange for it so easily. Droop was ecstatic. The most important quality to power was ruthlessness. Once a person had decided on his goals, he must be decisive. Lee's guest was Taros. Taros, how have you been recently? Both of them enjoyed some afternoon tea in the living room. Taros seemed to be in good spirits. It is said that the people from Earth know how to enjoy life. It seems like this is true. While he was visiting Earth for a few days, Lee had let Taros enjoy the best things in life. The Kronos family treats its friends well, Lee said. Our plan in the first phase was considered a success. Now it is time for the second phase. Achilles will not be an easy opponent, we best make the appropriate preparations. Achilles may be strong. There will be no chance of winning in a 1 versus 1. But if we combine forces, he will definitely lose. Taros laughed. Although the two of them were from different groups of people, they were able to cooperate with each other. Taros hated trash like Achilles, and at least there was mutual benefit to be gained by working with Lear. Lear wanted to be the future leader of the solar system. That meant that Taros had to be dealt with, it couldn't be helped. His position in the Republic of Hades was too low. It was not that he didn't want it, it was just that his ability was simply insufficient. But through Lear, he would be able to achieve his interests. Lear was also very generous and seemed to mean well. He decided that he might as well work with Lear to defeat Achilles. This was because Achilles looked stronger on the surface. Lear was the one who had taken care of the entire first phase. Now that training had entered the second phase, Taros' strengths could be put into play in the battle of the leaders. The 5 prepared leaders at the pinnacle were Lear, Achilles, and Lai Xin as the main pillars. Rastin and Taros would decide which way the balance would tilt. Rastin upheld the characteristics of the Karagal people, neutrality and competition, and opted not to participate in the upcoming factional struggles. If Taros were to lean towards Achilles at this moment, the balance would be broken. Achilles was already extremely strong. This would create an opportunity for Lear to join hands with Lai Xin, so it would be a 3 versus 1 as Taros was secretly on Lear's side. Once Achilles had been taken care of, taking care of Lai Xin would be simple. Lear knew this very clearly. They had all been battling since their time in Academy X to resolve this battle. A good head start was half the battle won. He would be the one to represent the solar system this time. On Mars, Lai Xin's situation was simpler. The Lai family had a higher amount of control than others did over the military. The most important thing was that Mars was not restricted by arbitrary taboos. The Lai family was in a position of hegemonial power on Mars, and in some ways, it conferred more advantages to them. In contrast, Ares College's situation was actually the only one that resembled normalcy. After training, Yan Xiaoshu hurried over and invited the others to a meal. As in Mei was not around, he could banter to his heart's content. It seemed as though he had limitless energy. Training is important, but don't forget to enjoy the good things in life. Don't tire yourselves out too much. I wonder how little Xin is doing in Aslan. He didn't even come back during the holidays. What kind of ghoulish school is that? I've sent him several messages, but none of them got through. Yan Xiaoshu complained. He had hoped that all three of them would be able to meet up during the holiday. He should be busy. He is very tough despite his usual calm appearance. He is definitely doing Earth proud in Aslan. Wang Zheng laughed. He felt that the place Xie Yuxin had gone to would most likely help develop his ability X. The Arillo star that belonged to the Aslan Empire was like a blade that stabbed into the Milky Way. This was a star that was far from the homeworld of the Aslan Empire, and it served as a springboard on which they could launch an invasion into the galaxy. This was a symbol of the Aslan Empire's age of expansion. During times of peace like now, these springboards of invasions were given new meaning. The Arillo star became a hub for cultural exchange of the Aslan Empire. It was through here that their culture radiated to the other galactic states. This was also a sort of expansion, a cultural expansion. This was a bustling and vibrant planet. The city at the center of the planet had hundreds of colleges and universities. Exchange students from all over the Milky Way Alliance received the best Aslan education here, and only those that retained the best performances would get the chance to go to the capital of the Aslan Empire. After being cleared by the planetary defenses, a spaceship shrouded in dark light entered the planet's atmosphere directly from outer space. The spaceship swept through Arillo's atmosphere and passed through the Lidden Mountains before it made its landing. The spaceship's light convergence dissipated and revealed the shape of the spacecraft. It had the appearance of an Aslan ship, but the technical characteristics showed that it had traces of Atlantis technology. The other side of the Lidden Mountains was a vast stretch of desert. The spacecraft swept through the desert and signaled. Alpha number 07, the 57th flight test is completed. Requesting permission to return to the college. Alpha number 07, you may return to the college, welcome back. The spaceship disappeared in a flash of light. There were no gusts of wind on the ground, nor was there the sonic boom that indicated the breaking of the sound barrier. It was as if air resistance did not apply to this spaceship. The spaceship stopped deep in the desert and started to land slowly. Just then, the desert grounds shook and the dunes cracked open, exposing a metal door hidden in the sand. The metal door had a huge X mark painted on it. The huge, metal door opened and the spaceship proceeded to land in the middle of it. A metal arm stretched out and held the ship in position. Another conveyor belt would carry the spaceship deeper underground. This was a huge underground base. But the people coming and going about in the base were not soldiers, they were mostly students wearing a variety of uniforms. But it was obvious that this was different from the average college. It looked a little bit less like a college and more like a high-tech lab. Even under a tense and efficient atmosphere, each person's face was full of spirit coupled with a look of self-confidence. The 28th floor underground was the Department of Occult Science. Not everyone could access the 28th floor. A security access card must be swiped when one was in the elevator for verification before the 28th floor could be selected. The walls inside the laboratory were white and the ceiling and floor were a deep black. This contrast in color brought about a sense of mystery. In the middle of the room, Xie Yuxin and a middle-aged man were sitting across from each other at a glass table. The chairs were transparent too, and it looked like the both of them were floating. Xie Yuxin smiled and looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man held a deck of playing cards in his hands. The middle-aged man drew a card, took one look at it, and said, "Let's play one more time. This card that I've drawn, what is it?" The time starts now. At the same time, he opened a website full of jokes and started to read them. Xie Yuxin frowned. His ability X was perception, and it also had a little predictive potential, but he still was not very sure what it could do. This so-called perception perceived the information that the other party was thinking about via subtle movements from them. The more the other side was focused on the information, the greater the likelihood of Xie Yuxin being able to perceive it. Xie Yuxin focused on the subtle movements that the middle-aged man gave off. Naturally, the other party was already immersed in the jokes, but he would still subconsciously give hints as to the card itself. The middle-aged man knew this as well. What Xie Yuxin needed to do was filter out the distractions and narrow down the information that he needed. Sweat started to drip down from his forehead. Although it was an ability X, it did not guarantee that he would definitely be right. A combat-oriented ability such as his was often unstable. It is the Five of Hearts. Wait, I also saw that. The King of Clubs? Xie Yuxin exhaled deeply and answered. The middle-aged man frowned and flipped the card over. It was the Five of Hearts. That was the wrong answer. But, how did you arrive at the King of Clubs? I did not use any misleading tricks this time. Xie Yuxin had been here for half a year and his ability had improved quickly. These sorts of mistakes would not have happened even a month ago. Xie Yuxin was shocked. I don't know either. Maybe you are tired. Get some rest for today, the middle-aged man said. He looked at the time. They had been at it for 2 hours already. Xie Yuxin shook his head. I'm not tired, let's try it again. No need to overdo it. But okay, if you insist. We'll call it a day if you make one mistake. The middle-aged man said. He shuffled the cards again and casually drew a card. He took a look at it and his face instantly turned white. Mentor. Xie Yuxin's eyes flashed and quickly captured the information. It was the King of Clubs. The card he just drew was the King of Clubs. An improvement, very good. Looks like we'll have to redesign your training all over again. The power of prediction, and it was not a vague feeling but a clear prediction. It was unbelievable. Ability X was largely based on the development of human instinct, but taken to the extreme. However, certain users had touched upon uncharted territory. Xie Yuxin was clearly one of them. Zhang Qing's voice was a little agitated. He took a deep breath and calmed down. Ho, Xie Yuxin, you've been here for half a year already? Yes, half a year. Congratulations, your ability rank has increased. You are the first of Earth's representatives to do so. Your isolated training will thus conclude. You are now allowed to enjoy a higher level of treatment and authority. Aslan's Institute of Capacity Studies was similar to the Milky Way Alliance's Academy X, but it was run independently by the Aslan Empire. Its main research direction was directed towards non-combat ability X's, especially those that involved prediction and time. Humans had always been curious about some of the runes of Atlantis, especially their religious beliefs and the existence of God. The words of God. Ever since humans entered the era of science and technology, this belief mainly stemmed from the heart. But it was clear that this was not the case for Atlantis. Such power truly existed for them. The Aslan Empire was the one faction that had significant interactions with Atlantis. This was also done in the event that if something disastrous was predicted, they would have ample time to prepare for it. When Atlantis chose to join the alliance, it was to comply with the will of God. The same reason was given to external parties. However, it was, in fact, pure nonsense. They had not connected with God for countless years since. But there was no doubt that it was a win-win situation for both parties. The Aslan Empire was an elite empire, and they had been curious about this power. There were many students like Xie Yuxin who had accepted the best education that the Aslan Empire offered. This was the most comprehensive way to develop their abilities, something that schools could not do. Xie Yuxin had learned a lot here, and he had also made many friends. Students with exceptional grades could become citizens of the Aslan Empire and enjoy the best benefits. This in turn had attracted many students to come here. But this was not what Xie Yuxin was after. He wanted to learn more, especially regarding his ability X. When Xie Yuxin thought about his own understanding of ability X and the information he had collated about it, He could not help but show a confident smile. He would be able to send the information to Wang Zheng and Yan Xiaoshu soon. He knew that this was especially useful to Wang Zheng. He did not know why, but his instincts had told him so. Alas, it was a pity that Wang Zheng was not a beautiful babe. Brothers Net Cafe. Wang Zheng was dragged there once again by Yan Xiaoshu. There were such facilities in the club, but Yan Xiaoshu was not interested in going there. He preferred places with more people as it would be livelier, and he was also more familiar with the people at Brothers Net Cafe. Recently, Yan Xiaoshu got addicted to using the jungle scamper. He had used his own ability and climbed up to the silver rank. Soon he would be able to compete for a promotion to the gold rank. It was a completely different feeling from being carried by someone else. He would get looks of awe from his teammates whenever he hit his opponents. The most important thing was that whenever the match began, his teammates would feel like going AFK the moment he picked the jungle scamper. Proving them wrong after the match was an unrivaled feeling. These days, 9 out of 10 jungle scampers performed terribly, but Yan Xiaoshu was part of the remaining 1 out of 10 that actually did well. Yan Xiaoshu's CT friend list had quite a few good players, and a bunch of them had carried him before. Now Yan Xiaoshu was good enough to carry them instead. Yan Xiaoshu's overall win rate was only around 40%, but his win rate using the jungle scamper was 80%. Even if the battle was a loss, he would be the last one to die. That gave people a feeling that he was wretched, incomparably wretched. When Wang Zheng and Ella used the jungle scamper, it was to continually suppress the enemy while using a retreating strategy. But it was different for Yan Xiaoshu. His use of it could only be described as wretched. He did everything possible to be a hidden sniper. Sometimes the opponents even tried to deliberately bait him out, but he would not be fooled. He always adhered to the rule of safety first, so they had no way to deal with him. Also, Yan Xiaoshu only played on terrains that suited the jungle scamper. Hearing Yan Xiaoshu laughing on the other side, Wang Zheng could not help it and started laughing too. Wang Zheng was not interested in combat when there were no suitable opponents. Instead, he looked at the mecha in his library and the most recent news. Xiao Fei's reputation had grown recently. He had originally planned to spend time on her subject during the holidays, but sadly he could not find the time for it. There were invitations from all over the galaxy, one after another, at different times. Many of the schools did not have holidays, but there were invitations from the National Academy of Sciences and the Federal Academy of the Solar System. It would not be wise to reject these invitations. Xiao Fei had become successful this time. Additionally, she had suddenly become the winner of the Milky Way Alliance's Nobel Prize for Physics. Dong Xuewu no longer had a chance to beat her. The only comparable award was the Best Contribution Award, which was also one of the biggest awards as well as the biggest honor a scientist could have. Her competitor was Mu Fengchun, who had also made large contributions in mathematics and its relevant fields. On the familiarization of the mecha, Zhou Mu had no way to help. They could borrow the CT system to achieve a certain degree of understanding. If the conditions had been ideal, he would hope that Wang Zheng and the others would have been able to familiarize themselves with all the mecha available. To both know oneself as well as the opponent would allow them to be unbeatable. But then again, reality was not so kind. To a professional soldier like Zhou Mu, the CT system was only able to provide at best 10% of the actual feeling of piloting a mech. But this was the best they could do under current circumstances, and some form of information was better than none. In fact, the simpler a mech was, the better it would be as a form of reference. In contrast, the more advanced the mech was, the less likely it would be useful as reference due to it being too specialized. Even if the functions were similar, the pilots needed to understand the performance of the mech as well as how it actually operated. The CT versions were overly simplified. Furthermore, the more advanced the mech, the more difficult it was to pilot it. This was true not only for the Atlantis mech. Wang Zheng went through the data that Chen Shu sent him while looking for some suitable combat videos. If a video made it onto the list, it had to contain something of value. Mankind's potential was unlimited. Once a suitable mech was found, its potential could be maximized through the one's power as well as imagination. In fact, Wang Zheng knew that he could use anything, but his powers of imagination were next to nothing. But this was his own personal assessment. If Yan Xiaoshu had heard this, he would have farted in protest. How could the theory of transcendence be so simple? Was this the thinking of someone who would go against the entire galaxy? It was simple to Tyrant Su. As long as he had a bit of light, he felt like he was the sun. After watching for a while, Wang Zheng heard his mailbox notification ring. He initially thought that it was Chen Shu and the others, but he found out that it was Xie Yuxin. That rascal, I thought he had forgotten about me already. Wang Zheng opened the mail and was totally stunned. He had been pondering this question for a long time. Even the people around him had no answer to it. And suddenly, someone sent him the answer he had been looking for. This sort of feeling was impossible to describe. This is my personal understanding on what Ability X is. It may not be totally accurate. I hope this will be of help to you, Wang Zheng. Also, please don't let Yan Xiaoshu be lazy. I hope that next time we meet up, I will have made great achievements and will be leading a wonderful life. Xie Yuxin still spoke so blandly. Wang Zheng had never seen him be anything more than ambivalent. Everyone had their own goals. What was Xie Yuxin's? Wang Zheng did not know himself, but one thing was for sure. This rascal had made it big. He was actually able to have a premonition of the direction his own goals would take him. If this guy were a lady, he would be a very pleasant person. With regards to technology and training, Wang Zheng felt confident and was not worried about his opponents. But Bonehead's training emphasized understanding the unknown. In the era of Ability X, even if they were not prepared for it, they had to understand it at the very least, or else the level of uncertainty in combat was too high. Xie Yuxin's familiar face appeared. Wang Zheng, I do not know why your genetic score is so low. But according to my Ability X, you and Xiaosu's life forces are very strong. I guess it is just a problem of awakening it. Wang Zheng laughed bitterly. His chances should be quite good, as he was able to complete the Rubik's Cube as well as endure such tortuous training. Under these conditions, why hadn't his Ability X awakened yet? Ever since the cultivation of the 5 elements, Wang Zheng felt that he had gotten closer to achieving his Ability X. There were other aspects that he had gotten stronger in, but he had yet to break through. Xie Yuxin wrote the latter part in words. It could be seen that he was trying to put his interpretation into words. These were just some of his insights and not the absolute truth. He hoped that it would provide a reference for Wang Zheng, or perhaps even enlighten him. Technically, Ability X was the power contained in each person's DNA. It might look incredible, but it was not really all that mysterious. It was just that humans were too dependent on machinery, and this caused their powers to gradually fade away. This was in contrast to the Zerg, which had relied entirely on genetic power, the exact opposite of what the humans did. But just as human science and technology had reached a certain degree in forcing this ability to manifest, this genetic power had undergone a dramatic change. A mutation occurred and it had created problems in human genetics. It was a situation that could potentially wipe out mankind. Later on, at the highest level conferences of the Solar System Federation, this development was stopped and mankind returned to the old path. However, with the steady development of science and technology as well as the slow rise of genetic technology, humanity's pursuit of physical health and longevity would be impossible to stop. The control of genetic technology was slowly loosened. After all, with the last experience, the technology of forced change had been completely banned, but it did not prevent the gradual improvement of human genetics. This natural evolution of adaptation would contain a certain rate of elimination. Some humans would awaken their powers, while some would not. But the awakened humans had obtained this power naturally and would not suffer any backlash. It has to be acknowledged that Atlantis provided a lot of help in this regard. This allowed humans to have a better understanding of it. Many scientists and professionals had done research in this area. The citizens of Atlantis possessed strong personal power. It would be an exaggeration to consider them super soldiers, but their average power level was very high. They were a race that possessed both strength and intelligence, but they worshipped God. They also had complete control over their desire to expand. This was very strange as it seemed to go against common human motivations. The current explanation was that they were able to control themselves from expanding rampantly, hence preventing themselves from spreading themselves too thin, weakening, and eventually destroying themselves. If one chose to expand rampantly, it would inevitably lead to catastrophe. Humans were strong, but they relied on their tools. Once they left their tools behind, they were no longer as threatening. This also had the effect of allowing the humans to remain relatively peaceful. But even so, ambition could be formidable. Just looking at the expansion of the Milky Way, one could see the reason why. The people of Atlantis had a sense of sentimental attachment to their history, and through various channels, humans had come to an understanding of it. They had once expanded but suffered a heavy blow and finally returned to a calm and sustainable pace of living. This present system could never have been formed overnight. Humans were the smartest. To maintain strong ambition as well as strength at the same time while also maintaining the steady development of the entire nation, a balanced approach was by far the best choice. Looking from the history of human development, the humans did not lack time or patience. Even if it could not be done in a generation, they could take 2 generations or even 10 generations. As long as they had a goal, that was sufficient to them. The ability X in humans gradually matured over time, and genetic adjustment had a gradual effect on it. A small number of humans changed and gradually began to transcend their limitations. After all, humans did not want to end up becoming the monsters that science fiction predicted. These were creatures that were brains in vats. The body must not be allowed to weaken. Ability X was popularly regarded to be akin to the power of an animal, such as Zhang Runan's power, which was akin to having the strength of a bear. It was naturally powerful regardless of one's musculature. Besides, there were other abilities, such as the perception of danger and the ability to breathe underwater. These were present in the biological genetic chain, but they were either dormant or disappearing over time. It was only now that these abilities had begun to awaken. Currently, humans were vaccinated when they were born. In addition to disease prevention, these vaccines provided an opportunity and in some cases were the main trigger to awaken their latent abilities. Some people would not see a reaction in their lifetimes, but they would be able to pass on any subtle changes to the next generation, improving their chances of success. In essence, everyone had a chance of awakening. Thus, Xie Yuxin thought that in order to awaken one's ability X, one must first believe in it. Humans' powers had always come from an eruption of emotions. "I'll kill you, Frieza." Xie Yuxin and the others like him who were born into high social standings had a strong sense of confidence and desire. His first awakening was when he took an exam, but when he did not get first place, he was devastated. Under such strong emotional stimulations, his ability X was awakened. Wang Zheng and Yan Xiaoshu were the same. They were envious, but they did not have such strong demands for themselves. Especially at the Aslan Empire's Ability X Research Institute, Xie Yuxin had inquired about the topic in many ways and discovered that everyone's situation was roughly the same. Wang Zheng and Yan Xiaoshu should not have been feeling envious about him, but rather they had subconsciously approved of it and hence were not emotionally stimulated. Upon reading this, Wang Zheng could feel his heart surging. Xie Yuxin had said the words in his heart. Although he was very strong, Wang Zheng felt that his foundation skills were not good enough. As a result, he was still far from achieving his ability X, but after hearing what Xie Yuxin had to say, it felt as if a knot in his heart had unraveled. Could it be that the more difficult it was to awaken the ability X, the stronger it would be after it had awakened? From another perspective, this would coincide with the theory of natural selection through bioengineering. The greater the potential power, the greater the price to pay in order to awaken it. This was the law of nature, and no species had been able to avoid it. Wang Zheng's life force was so strong that Xie Yuxin admitted that it was the most vibrant one that he had ever felt. Wang Zheng had enormous potential. Such a person should be considered fortunate, but at the same time it was considered to be the most tragic. He would have to face more challenges and obstacles. The deciding factor was how strong his will was. Xie Yuxin wrote a lot, but Wang Zheng could feel that every word was written with resolve. It contained Xie Yuxin's personal experiences while attempting to cater to Wang Zheng's understanding. This was a bond between battle brothers that could even rival a marriage. Wang Zheng turned off the screen and laid down on his chair with his hands behind his neck. He gently closed his eyes and remembered what Xie Yuxin said about him. If ability X was classified according to its nature, there would be a variety of different categories, but Xie Yuxin divided it into 3 categories. One which was derived from their own power, one which borrowed the power of nature, and the third was a combination of the first two. Zhang Runan obviously would be of the type that derived from her own power. Meng Tian most likely belonged to the third category. A portion was derived from her own power while another portion was borrowed from nature. Through Xie Yushan's understanding, together with Wang Zheng's personal sentiment, the situation became a lot clearer. He had been training hard to awaken his ability, but it seemed like it was not a case of how strong you were, but rather if the correct stimulation was applied. It was largely based on emotions. It had become more difficult now. If it were merely training, Wang Zheng would have grinded it until his ability awoke. But if it required stimulation, Student Wang had never been easily agitated. It was all Bonehead's fault. After going through such training, it was easy to keep a calm mind but difficult to have impulsive emotions. After thinking for a while, Wang Zheng laughed. He had taken himself too seriously. The pursuit of strength was a goal, not a burden. Suddenly, Yan Xiaoshu made a weird sound. I am invincible. Henceforth, you shall address me as valiant warrior, tall, rich, handsome. Student Yan had won again. This was unprecedented. Yan Xiaoshu was ecstatic, and Wang Zheng could feel Yan Xiaoshu's life force increasing. Could he be on the verge of awakening? Life was simple to Yan Xiaoshu. His goal was to continue living a nouveau riche life. To him, the simpler life was, the easier it was to awaken. Boss. Look, my win rate is unbelievable. 5 wins in 5 battles. I even met 2 of my primary schoolmates. Every time Yan Xiaoshu used the jungle scamper, he would play with laser-like focus while employing a hit-and-run tactic. The opponents hated his sort of playstyle. But every time Yan Xiaoshu retreated, he would inspire stronger morale amongst his team. He ran faster than anyone else. And when the opponent's firepower was focused on him, his teammates could launch a counterattack. And during critical moments, Yan Xiaoshu's precise lightning javelin shots would turn the tide of the battle. Wang Zheng was also curious about this, so he looked at Yan Xiaoshu's accuracy stats with the lightning javelin. Yan Xiaoshu actually had a hit rate of more than 60%. So accurate, Wang Zheng knew what the problem was. Yan Xiaoshu was completely different from him. He had never trained and their skills with weapons were worlds apart. I had an epiphany. Every time I am about to fire the weapon, I visualize the target as an absolute babe. Then there would be no way that I would miss it. Yan Xiaoshu gloated. This is my secret, please don't tell anyone else. Wang Zheng was dumbfounded. Would it even work if others tried it? But this was indeed a pretty wretched move. Wang Zhen shared Xie Yushan's understanding with Yan Xiaoshu. Yan Xiaoshu pondered for a while and said, I am not very concerned about that. The battlefield is not my place anyway. If one day the human race is on the verge of extinction and I have the chance to awaken, I would like to have an overview of what is happening. Boss. Why are you looking at me like that? I know I am ambitious. Bang! There was a bump on Yan Xiaoshu's forehead. Student Wang could stand him no longer. You might as well hope to be reincarnated into a woman in your next life. That way you could appreciate yourself all day. Ho ho, boss, you are being too mean. You do not understand the main allure of women. Tisk, you would not understand it even if I explained it to you. Why are you going to claim Princess Aina as your own? Only then will you really understand that in this world, fame is but fleeting clouds and only a steady stream of babes is true love. Yan Xiaoshu had an epiphany. The mystery surrounding babes could never be solved. Xie Yushan's understanding had unraveled a knot in Wang Zheng's heart. He would continue to train as per normal and bide his time. Wang Zheng had a fulfilling time during the summer, but his plan to train peacefully was interrupted. There was a special summon for Wang Zheng and Xiao Fei from the Solar System Federation's Federal Academy. Although he was still a student, Wang Zheng's reputation had spread far and wide, but of course, only within his relevant field. Xiao Fei could not regard Wang Zheng as just another student. He had made great contributions to the whole project, especially in the areas of critical importance. Thus she had emphasized this when she submitted her report. In the past, the academy would have thought that Xiao Fei was merely trying to promote the student, but after the Roland Garros incident, news of Wang Zheng's entry into Genesis Coffee had spread. It must be said that Xiao Fei had just joined as well, and the club had a huge reputation. Given her qualifications and contributions, She would only qualify as a new member. She had no authority to bring another student in. Even a few founders did not have this authority. But Wang Zheng was able to join, and from this incident, the legend of Wang Zheng grew. The Solar System Federation's academy was slow to react to the news. The Aslan Empire as well as other factions had already sent invitations to Wang Zheng. It was rare for such talented individuals to appear in the solar system, and yet the other factions were shamelessly trying to poach him. This was an unbearable insult. Regarding this matter, Wang Zheng had no strong objections. His ability X could not be awakened through training. He might as well head out and see the world. He might even find some inspiration. He had gained a lot since the last trip to Roland Garros. Reading a travel guide was nothing like walking the 1,000 miles himself. Wang Zheng began to gradually understand this saying. Externally, most people evaluated Wang Zheng as a good student who had gained prominence through Xiao Fei. No matter what achievement he made himself, it would always be credited to Xiao Fei. Wang Zheng had always been calm about these types of comments. He felt no need to contest it or to get into arguments over it. It would be better if everyone believed it. However, when it came to theoretical discussions, if Wang Zheng did not possess the capabilities he was said to have, individuals like Mu Fengchun could easily tell and expose him. There was no need for further explanation. People at this level ignored the common man's thinking. What was important was the subject of discussion itself. This was why Mu Fengchun, Gale, and the others placed emphasis on their discussions. Morals, had it been someone else, that person may had already been impatient with his mentor out of fear that he was not being given due credit for his achievements. This sort of person would end up like Dong Shuiwu once he reached the pinnacle. Although Wang Zheng was not the same sort of person as Mu Fengchun, neither could he be considered ordinary. The club was a place where both ability and moral character were given equal importance. Mars was the venue for the Symposium on Science and Technology Development and Application event. It was jointly organized by the Solar System Federation's Federal Academy of Sciences, as well as a dozen other large technology companies of the solar system. It was the first time that Wang Zheng and Xiao Fei had come to Mars. Upon disembarking the spaceship, they could see that the entire spaceport was filled with a sea of young students. Wang Zheng took a deep breath. The air quality of Mars is pretty good. Haha, I heard that they place emphasis on martial prowess over intellectual ability. I think everyone is enthusiastic about this seminar. There are so many fans. Although you are the youngest scientist to attend the seminar, don't be arrogant, Xiao Fei rebuked. Xiao Fei's status as the youngest scientist was revoked due to Wang Zheng's presence. In the history of human development, there had been numerous talented young people, but most of them had disappeared in the long river of history. It seemed like one could not merely rely on talent. Xiao Fei was considered to be different. She had achieved fame at a young age before settling down. Her current position had demanded a lot of effort and sacrifice from her. To Xiao Fei, science was her greatest love. But Wang Zheng was curious. Why was a beautiful babe like Xiao Fei not attached? Were there really no suitors during her academic years? It was impossible. That place was the Aslan Empire? This was a personal question. Xiao Fei could tease Wang Zheng on this topic, but he could not tease his teacher. With Xiao Fei's authority, she could absolutely abuse him. A lot of people had come to welcome them. They had to be polite after all. Wang Zheng waved to acknowledge them. Immediately, there was screaming. Student Wang was surprised. This was the power of science. Who knew that researchers could achieve this level of fame? But very quickly, the screams faded and they were left with sounds of disappointment. Wang Zheng was directly ignored. Xiao Fei, who was at the side, started to laugh. You're usually meticulous, but you can be so careless at times. If Weian wanted to hold a concert on Mars, all these fans would be queuing up to get in. The two of us don't even come close to having that much charm. Wang Zheng broke out into a sweat. Xiao Fei was clearly in the know and was purposely teasing him. TCH. Who would have known the professor had such a wicked sense of humor? He had only just arrived on Mars and he had lost face already. Luckily, everyone's attention was focused somewhere else. Indeed, there had been someone who had come to meet him and Xiao Fei, but that unfortunate person had been mobbed into a corner by hysterical fans earlier. When they heard that Lin Weiyan had arrived, They had forgotten their original intentions and rushed ahead. TCH. To be an idol was such a pain. The man receiving them looked to be about 40, and he introduced himself as Zhang Feng. Faced with the two young scientists, he was bemused by how young they really were. Wei Yan sure has a lot of fans, even on Mars, Xiao Fei smilingly noted. She was on good terms with Wei Yan, and a fan to boot. Didn't she just come to the solar system a while back? What's she doing here again? Wang Zheng inadvertently blurted. What do you mean here again? She only went to Earth last time. Anyway, it's been so long. An aged man like Zhang Feng retorting so strongly. He clearly looked like a fan too. Wang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. What a strong reaction. Xiao Fei laughed too. Weren't you really close with Princess Aina the last time? Wei Yan is her sister. You need to treat Wei Yan better. HMPH. What did that have to do with anything? Conversation never flowed easily with Lin Wei Yan. Although her voice was satisfactorily sweet, that wench was nosy and had a superior attitude, constantly trying to meddle with things. Hopefully he wouldn't meet her this time. Haha, I was just a little surprised. Looks like the solar system's market has expanded. That's true. The solar system's economic outlook has shown faint signs of recovery in recent years. The industry of culture is a profitable one, and the solar system should really prioritize the development of the tourism industry. The Aslan Empire and those other unions have also considered this point. It helps to put the solar system back on the Milky Way Alliance's stage, which is a good thing anyway. Xiao Fei knew best about the situation of the Milky Way Alliance. As a mere singer, Lin Wei Yan obviously did not have such power, but things had changed after her identity had been exposed. People could not help but speculate about the underlying political intentions. Regardless, it was a good sign. The Aslan Empire's strategy was clearly right, to attack one's neighbors and treat with those beyond its military reach. In light of the solar system's current situation, it would definitely welcome such a strong ally. Although the Solar System Federation was comparatively weaker, it had historical status, and every vote could be crucial to the Aslan Empire in a critical time. It goes without saying that when the Aslan people got down to it, they were much smarter than other federations and empires. As a military student, Wang Zheng did not spend all his time brooding over violence. International affairs was a compulsory module, and an important one at that. It distinguished military students from the average soldier through an appreciation of the larger picture. While it did not directly translate into military might, a holistic view had its uses and determined the promotion of a fighter. A lasting proverb said, "A soldier who did not wish to become a general was not a good soldier." Compared to other aspects, Wang Zheng needed much more honing in this. The seminar this time around was of a high caliber thanks to the presence of a big sponsor. The meeting venue was at the 5-star Silver Light Hotel in Jipu, a famous city on Mars with a superbly developed economy. After leaving a method to contact him, Zhang Feng left. Martians always did things in a rush, unlike the considerably more hospitable Earthlings. The meeting was conveniently scheduled to commence in the hotel. It was not due to start for a full day, which allowed Wang Zheng and Xiao Fei to rest. Xiao Fei had business to settle, and Wang Zheng could not sit still either. He was not going to pass up on the opportunity to explore after coming all the way to Mars. Furthermore, Mars had a rich history, especially the Sage sect that was known throughout the solar system. Wang Zheng had always held deep interest in matters of history since young. He had naturally started from stories of heroes, especially the unofficial histories that were non-mainstream. All those years ago, Mars had sacrificed and contributed much in the battles against the Zerg. And in the current chapter of history, of course the Lai family and the Sage sect should not be missed. It was a double-edged sword to Wang Zheng's way of thinking. The Lai family and the Sage sect had become the pride and glory of Mars, but single-family planetary leadership for so many generations would surely not be a good thing. Although the Aslan Empire was based on an imperial system, the attraction of talent and other important matters were well handled. It was difficult to imagine how lineage and talent were integrated so superbly. Wang Zheng felt a pang of regret that he was not a specialist in social relations. "Wang Zheng, it's really you." From behind, a delighted voice was heard. He recognized both immediately when he turned around. One was a giant, the other a petite figure. Were these two Rastin and Xie Yachting of Karagal? Ah, it really is you, Wang Zheng. Rastin laughed carefreely. Wang Zheng laughed too. What a coincidence, are you too? From the look in his eyes, Xie Yachting knew he had the wrong impression. Rastin is my small uncle. Xie Yachting resented this relationship and cursed herself for being born too early. Haha, that's according to generational lineage, but privately we always converse as equals, Rastin chuckled. Wang Zheng smirked. I thought there were benefits to be had. Both of you are horrid, all you do is bully me. Xie Yachting stomped her foot huffily. Rastin eyed Wang Zheng with a little interest. Yachting told me about this guy called Wang Zheng that she met in Roland Garros, who was by chance also a student from Aries College. I didn't think it would be such a coincidence. Wang Zheng, are you here for the meeting too? Yeah. Professor Xiaofei bid me to come, so I'm taking it as a holiday on Mars. That's admirable of you, fighting a campaign on two fronts. I wonder which direction you'll end up developing. If you become a scientist, I'd give you 2 thumbs up because I'd have one less competitor. Out of the 5 preparatory leaders, Rastin had the most easygoing character. This was uncharacteristic of someone from the Karagal Republic. It was often remarked that space city dwellers were petty and narrow-minded, but Rastin was an exception. Definitely. Wang Zheng has the most potential among all the scientists in the solar system. He's the youngest to join the Genesis Coffee Club. That's a scientists' club of the highest distinction. He became the envy of all our professors. Xie Yachting's perennial gloominess in Roland Garros was a far cry from her unexpected buoyant mood. Perhaps it was just the joy of an unexpected reunion. Wang Zheng shook his head. Entering the physics department was a misunderstanding. I've since changed to the mecha department. My ambition is to be a mecha pilot. Of course, if you couldn't be a mecha pilot, that'd definitely be our loss, Rastin said. Clearly a person with Rastin's personality was unafraid of competition. Xie Yachting really had a big mouth. A person with such a bright future wanted to be a mecha pilot. What was so captivating about those jumping metal robots? Rastin was like that, and now Wang Zheng too, and you two are here for. Yachting is here for the same activity as you. I'm here on Mars to visit a friend. You would definitely be interested, he's a fascinating person. Oh, Lai Guang, a genuine member of the Lai family. That little punk went through a rebellious phase, but he is finally ready to go home. He'll be participating in the second phase of the IG, which will really raise the standard of the Mars faction, Rastin said. These things were like a fantasy for IG members. The name was not strange to Wang Zheng, but he could not be sure if they were the same person. I have long looked forward to meeting the famous Lai family from Mars. Shall we go together? He's a hospitable fellow, and I'm sure he would be excited to meet an interesting fellow like yourself. Small uncle, don't be a bad influence. Wang Zheng will be an eminent scientist in the future. Xie Yachting protested aggrievely. Rastin patted Xie Yachting on the head. Little wench, don't concern yourself with adult matters. Xie Yachting was left speechless. Little wench. Xie Yachting was so angry that she could barely breathe. Wasn't she older than Rastin by 3 days? Unbelievable. Rastin was not unfamiliar with Mars. Jipu isn't a bad place. Mars' economy has been readily recovering in recent years. Rastin was clearly a rich and powerful person to casually discuss cities' economies. Regardless, his manner put people at ease. It was small talk, not overt bragging. My impression of Mars has been limited to the Lai family and the Sage sect. Those of the Sage sect are said to possess inhuman power. That's not fable, it's true. The Sage sect has always been hidden in the mist. Although they do not involve themselves directly in politics, they have always had a hand in matters they deem important. Rastin said, there is a curious matter which may be delicate for me to ask. Wang Zheng shrugged. Ask away, I don't have much to hide. Are you familiar with Lear? We're not that close. We met before at a college networking event, but didn't really talk. Shouldn't the two of you be even more familiar? I heard you were schoolmates at Academy X, Wang Zheng said. Rastin nodded. Although we never had deep connections, I felt a particular kinship upon seeing you. Actually, the competition between IG section leaders this time is mainly between Achilles and Lear. Everyone else is merely a follower. With your ability, Lear's chances of winning will increase greatly if you consent to help him. Kiki, you think too highly of me. I'm not even an ability X user. I know. However, a person's uses are not limited to ability X. I am a good judge of character. On the whole, Achilles needs to be a little stronger, but he is still no match for Lear. Yet personality-wise, I must say I don't like Lear's character. Raston's blunt manner revealed that he clearly did not treat Wang Zheng as an outsider. Lai Shen is also very competent, is she not in the race? Raston shook his head lightly. You must not have seen Achilles and Lear's true faces of brutality. Taking the whole situation into consideration, it would be better if Lear took up the mantle of leadership. Against other opponents in the Milky Way Alliance, Achilles' shortcomings would soon be revealed. Oh, Achilles isn't treacherous enough. Haha, Raston guffawed. I'm not sure Lear would take that as praise. Wang Zheng chuckled. I'm only joining IG for the experience. Honestly, I am looking forward to it. After all, this is one direction in which I would like to develop in. It doesn't matter to me who leads, as long as he has the ability. Raston clapped his hands excitedly. Exactly, if a person has the ability and earns my respect, I don't mind either. Unfortunately, neither of those two are suitable. Haha, why'd I feel like you would be more suited to be a team leader instead? Wang Zheng said jokingly. Raston may have had a rough exterior, but a calculating mind lay underneath. He was nobody's fool. I know my limits. I have moments of clarity, but I'm unwilling to dedicate it all to leadership. With a good leader, I can bring out the full potential of my powers. Raston had touched on a key point. Although it seemed inconsequential as to who took up the mantle of leadership, in truth, it mattered very much. As a team member, you had to obey orders, but what if the leader's orders left you frustrated and with a bad taste in your mouth? In a place like IG, a leader needed to have the power to cow the masses, as well as be able to coordinate the team dynamic, in order to bring out the team's full strength. After all, the solar system IG qualifiers was not the goal. The true goal lay outside. Otherwise, Meng Ao and the rest would not have needed to go through such pains. Raston saw clearly that Wang Zheng had not contemplated these matters before, mainly because his thinking was not on the same level. Actually, you're pretty suited to be a team leader yourself, Raston suddenly said. Wang Zheng started, and brushed it off. This is overblown praise. I accept it, haha. Kiki, these aren't empty words. Your performance in the first phase was admirable. Some people might feel it was luck, but in matters of strength and weakness, you did well in keeping your team together and taking care of the details. Raston recounted how he had seen Wang Zheng run the mountain with Zhang Shan on his back. Someone who did not desert his teammates could not be all that bad. He was also not one of those weak nice guys who would encumber the team. Zhang Shan had later risen to the occasion and helped the team succeed. This spoke well of Wang Zheng's judgment of character. One other thing made Raston curious was that Achilles was not one to actively seek out others. He would feel it was beneath him, but was Li Er not different? He could not believe that a good judge of character like Li Er would not have recognized Wang Zheng's potential. Furthermore, with the name of the Kronos family behind him, it would have been all too easy to seek out anybody he wished. Actually, Taros was holding the same question as well. A person like Wang Zheng, who had solid foundations and yet did not have an ability X, was definitely a good find. Li Er, isn't this Wang Zheng an Earthling too? He seems to be one of the better ones from Ares College. Why don't you take advantage of this opportunity to improve your chances? At that moment, Taros was luxuriating in Li Er's hospitality at one of the Kronos family's palaces. He was living as comfortably as a Tibetan king and loving every moment of it. If even Taros could spot this, it was inconceivable that Li Er had not considered this. As it were, Li Er had already done so in the past. After further observation, I decided that it was impossible to go far without ability X. Li Er smiled. That's true too. Taros reached a hand under the robes of one of the beauties attending him and began to fondle her enthusiastically. There were 4 of them attending him, each a beauty in her own right. Li Er remained alone. Li Er, are you sure you don't want one of them? Good things are meant to be shared, you know. Taro's other hand patted an ample rump. What a pert and firm buttock, and a virgin to boot. Li Er definitely treated guests well. Li Er smiled mildly. A gentleman never divests the benefits of others for himself. It is rare that you have come. You must enjoy yourself to the fullest. But remember to take care of your body. Haha. Rest your mind. This little bit of frivolity will not wear me out. A man like myself only gets more energetic the more I exert. Isn't that right, my dearies? Wine and women, the pleasures of life. Taros was no fool. He would play when he could and get serious when he should. Li Er recognized his abilities. But Li Er's reminder put Taros at ease. It was meaningless to fret over the petty details. After leaving the room, Li Er had already put Taros out of his mind. Wang Zheng. In the end, he left Li Er with a sense of unease. Droop materialized without a sound. Master, everything went smoothly, he has departed. Li Er nodded. The Kronos family had pulled many strings in influencing the invitations of the Solar System Alliance's Science College. Wang Zheng's giftedness in other aspects was a good thing. Would more glory and accolades lead him to consider another path? Regardless of the result, distraction was inevitable. Droop opened his mouth, then closed it. Li Er smiled slightly. Don't stand there gaping like a fish, out with it. Droop, who followed Li Er around every day, dared not mince his words. Master, is this person worth it? Droop felt that a person who did not even have ability X was not worth such an effort. Besides, there were other ways to overcome the problem. Li Er shook his head slightly. Take this as a form of experiential learning. What Li Er was referring to was a king's agonizing discipline of the inner self. Victory and defeat were decided by his control, judgment, and foresight. Whether one wanted to eliminate a person or conquer them, rushing into battle was a mediocre means to accomplishing one's ends. Wang Zheng and Taros were good examples. The best kings in history were those who could influence development intangibly. Things could be planned, but when it came down to it, nothing beat experience. Wang Zheng and Rastin were both talkative. Rastin's easygoing nature suited his temperament. In the IG qualifiers, everyone was a rival, and interactions were rarely forthcoming. But things were different now. One was free to express oneself. Both parties were confident and needed nothing. Conversely, this made them even more natural in expressing themselves. As for the networking event, he would make it if he could, since he was already here. It was not a priority. He already knew himself well and did not see how the discussion could end up fruitful. Furthermore, he detested the fawning flattery that was inevitable at those events. Knowing Xiao Fei, finding an excuse would be effortless. Lai Guang and Rastin were clearly familiar with each other and gave each other a warm hug upon meeting. Finally, you're here to visit after so many invitations. Well, I'm here, aren't I? First let me introduce you. This is Wang Zheng, a prodigy at the Ares College on Earth. And this is Lai Guang, a rich playboy of the Lai family, Rastin quipped with familiarity. Lai Guang eyed Wang Zheng. So you're the pretty boy? Your complexion isn't that pale though. Wang Zheng and Rastin exchanged glances. This was unexpected. Haha, that's what Lai Xin told me, that there's a pretty boy with a good head. Lai Guang was always one to speak whatever came to mind and spared not a thought for politeness even at the first meeting. Anyone else may have turned to leave in the face of such an insult, but Wang Zheng was not a petty person. Yeah, I'd love to be someone's pretty boy. Too bad my complexion's too dark. Haha, anyone who left an impression on my sister as you did would have that problem. Lai Guang reached out a hand and the two grasped palms firmly. Lai Guang's eyes flickered. Welcome to Mars. A slight probe was all that was needed to know what was expected of him. After all, Rastin did not make friends with just anybody. You're the host here, so you'd better wait upon us well. Did you prepare the tickets for us or not? Tickets? You little rascal. You aren't even a pretty woman. Why would I come all the way here just to see you? Of course it's the tickets to Wei Yin's concert. Didn't you say you could get front row seats? Rastin said. Lai Guang slapped his forehead. Shucks, I forgot. Recently I've been too caught up in bigger things. These trivial matters must wait. The three were in a magnetic car that sped them towards the Lai family's villa in Jipu. What did you say? It can't be done. Do you even know who I am? Lai Guang yelled. Just as Rastin said, Lai Guang really seemed every bit the playboy. The other person was clearly discomfited. The ordinary seats were definitely possible, but front row seats had been long reserved. It would be no small feat to even obtain anything. What was one to do when faced with such a sudden request for tickets? Forget it. Cut the bluster, man, we'll just get you for it later. Rastin cut in. After all, he wasn't here just to watch a concert. He had matters to discuss with Lai Xin as well. Rastin's situation was special. He had to make his choice and decide the team he would join. Faced with Achilles and Li Er, he would rather choose Lai Xin. At least he would maintain a degree of freedom and feel more at ease. Lai Guang shrugged irritably. Curse them. What in the world? I wanted to show off a little in front of a new acquaintance, but I stumbled. The Lai family's name is losing its luster. You little rascal. You've been using the Lai family name to back your wanton lifestyle for so long that nobody believes you anymore. TCH, these aren't hard times. It's the return of the prodigal son. What a pity that today's result was different. Lai Guang laughed, apathetic to the Lai family's reputation. You and your nonsense. If I had known you were this unreliable, I'd have booked it myself, Rastin said, belying a little regret. Perhaps I could give it a try. Wang Zheng smiled. Lai Guang and Rastin started, turning to stare at Wang Zheng. Haha, are you trying to imitate me? Don't mind me, guys. I always brag without thinking. Once you're familiar with me you would know this all too well, Lai Guang said. Wang Zheng skylinked Lin Weiyan's number. Truth was, he did not even know himself if Lin Weiyan would pick up. The dial tone started up. No reply. Forget it, Wang Zheng. This concert's tickets are too hot, they must have sold out ages ago. Just make a note that this fellow's words are not trustworthy. Rastin jibed in Lai Guang's direction. The two had been close since young, and their similar personalities meant that conversation was always unreserved. Wang Zheng smiled. I'm just giving it a try, if it doesn't work then it can't be helped. Lin Weiyan must be busy, she probably didn't have time to talk to him. Neither Lai Guang nor Rastin gave him much thought. They thought that Wang Zheng uttered thus because he was feeling inferior. Weiyan is beautiful and has an angelic voice. She's really not bad. I think she's worthy of being my girlfriend, Lai Guang said. Arg, how could I have forgotten such an important matter? Will you die if you stop bragging? Rastin bantered. Say those words only when you become the chairman of the Milky Way Alliance. TCH, behold my features. Look at this forehead, high and eminent, and admire my privileged life. Chairman of the Milky Way Alliance. I'll have to think about whether the post is worth taking, Lai Guang said. Wang Zheng was beginning to get the impression that this person did nothing but brag. It would be foolish to get serious with this kind of person who spewed nothing but hot air. At this moment, his skylink began to ring. Wang Zheng, did you even remember that I was coming? How dare you take so long to get in touch with me? Lin Weiyan shrieked. Wang Zheng was not sure if he should laugh or cry. This pampered girl no. This princess really saw no limit to her abilities. In her world, crossing solar systems, let alone planetary travel, was as normal as breathing.